in Texas a few weeks ago. The TSA was about to suffer a setback. The House and the Senate almost unanimously was about to pass a bill that would outlaw the groping that people are going through at the airports. It would have passed very easily, except that Texas Governor Perry and his lieutenant governor, through political pressure, put a stop to the bill. Now, Perry is a protege of George W. Bush, and he is planning on running for president. And he pretends to be for constitutional rights. He pretends to stand up against Washington. He wants to look like a rough, tough Texan who will take on the political establishment. But he is, in fact, a globalist. He did push for the NAFTA superhighway, and he did manage to put a stop to this bill. But because of political pressure, because the people want to see what's happening at the airport stopped, he had to include it in the final legislative session. It was up for a vote on Friday. But unfortunately, just when that vote was about to take place, and they did have the majority, they all went AWOL. Perry, his lieutenant governor, and the people in Washington don't want to see this pass. They don't want to suffer a setback to the police state. And Perry, being who he is, doesn't want his fingerprints on this. So they do it through bribery or threats. But it's still going to come up apparently on Monday, from what I heard. But you can't believe anything they say. They always find a way to weasel out of it. They know the people want it. And the House Speaker had the nerve to come out and say it would have made Texas a laughingstock if they passed this. Now, he knows that's a lie. It would have made Texas a hero. Texas would have been seen as a state that actually does stand up to the federal tyranny. He obviously is afraid. Now, either he has been threatened, or either he has been bribed, or either he is a complete coward and in denial. But for whatever reason, that did not come to a vote when it should have. Now, even if it does pass by some miracle, I have a feeling that they're going to stop it in another way. They'll probably say it's unconstitutional, and the court will put a stop to it being implemented. But at the very least, it would be a symbolic victory, and it would be an inspiration. I'm sure that the airlines are suffering financially because the people do not enjoy being treated like cattle. They don't enjoy being treated like prisoners when they board a plane. And whatever excuse they use, such as terrorism, to justify this isn't enough. It's not going to convince people to allow themselves and their children to be groped and treated like dirt. People need to have some dignity, and even in most dictatorships they're allowed to have some. Otherwise, there will be open rebellion. But apparently that hasn't sunk into the people in Washington. And the difference in this country is there is a certain amount of freedom of speech. And also the majority of people own firearms and weapons, despite these unconstitutional state laws that try to limit our freedoms and these unconstitutional federal laws. You see, as Thomas Jefferson said, firearms are essential for not only protecting people against criminals, but against criminals in government, because it is the nature of people in power to take too much money, to restrict our freedoms, and to look for new ways to do it. What is happening in Texas now is an example of the underhanded deceit that enrages people. Anybody with any common sense knows that the majority of people want to see this bill passed. They want to see the TSA stopped. Perry wants to run for president. He doesn't want to be seen as a coward. He doesn't want to be seen as someone who does the will of Washington, which he is, obviously. He wouldn't be in a position that he's in if he actually stood up against them. He's just another pretty boy who's come along to pretend to be something he isn't and weasel his way in the White House. We have Obama in there now. He's obviously obscene in every way. He obviously doesn't belong there. We haven't had a decent president in a very long time. And unless things change, we probably won't have one this time either. But at least let there be symbolic victories, and maybe even more than that. Let this thing in Texas pass. Let's see if the people in Texas do have a voice. You know as well as me the majority of people want to see this go through. They want to see this stopped. If it does pass, it will be a victory against the police state, and it will be a move in the right direction. N-Star Radio.